decision in this respect. So, of course, to avoid whatever, mistrust or future, I would say, disruption of the relation in this respect. It's not necessary, of course, Jordan support is very necessary, but for this to be successful and to happen, we need to have the support of the regional environment. I mean, my colleague spoke of the Syrian rule, I mean, spoke of the Saudi rule. I mean, now if you speak of the concerned Arab parties, whom they have direct interest in a Palestinian state. You would speak of Egypt, you would speak of Saudi Arabia, Syria, in this respect. So, I mean, we need to receive the support of those countries in this respect. And in every occasion, at the public level, I mean, from an academic point of view, I mean, my perspective is that there should be a Palestinian state that at least would accommodate most of the Palestinians. I mean, probably not every Palestinian would agree over such, 1967 war or something like that. But a Palestinian state with a border of 1967 would accommodate most of the Palestinians in this respect. So Jordan, at the public level, made it clear that Palestinian state is a Jordan interest, it is a regional interest, as well as an international interest. I mean, last time he visited the United States, King Abdullah made it clear it is an American interest that a Palestinian state should be created in this respect. And of course, in the context of discussion, probably we would bring more over this issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Hassan. Let me then finally introduce Michael Young, who is opinion editor of the Daily Star. Now, Hassan just spoke of a supportive regional environment. How do you see that from a Lebanese perspective?
Thanks. From the sublime to the ridiculous, unfortunately. Can you hear me? Is this okay? I think the Lebanese community, I mean, first of all, Lebanon is more an obstacle when it comes to the Palestinian refugee community than a part of the solution. The Lebanese refugee community is obviously one of the largest. It's also a community from 1948. And there's a very nice phrase in David Hirst's last book where a Palestinian official once told him that Lebanon was like a garden without a fence, I think. And in many respects, that's still true. And that's also true of the Palestinian refugee camps, which are a distillation of the political contradictions in Lebanon and to a certain extent in the region. And I think that it's through that mechanism or lack of a mechanism in a way that we see many of the obstacles. And of course, in our first session this morning, we were discussing the issue of refugees and what to do with the refugees. Well, obviously, this is something that will affect Lebanon essentially. A resolution of the refugee problem will affect Lebanon essentially, because as I said, most of them are from 1948. Generally three problems, if I could just very briefly summarize them for you. First, there is the issue of settlement, what is known in Arabic as tawteen. In the Lebanese constitution, of course, there is a constitutional clause that rejects the idea of settling the Palestinian refugees in Lebanon. It doesn't mention the Palestinians by name, but that's implied. And indeed, the official position of the Lebanese state is that they should not be settled. The Palestinian position is we should not be settled, because of course that means that they will not return home. And of course everyone really knows that by and large, if there is going to be a solution of the refugee issue, quite a few Palestinians in Lebanon will probably be settled. Now, in one way or another, whether they will be given nationality or not is a question of some debate. But there are also domestic Lebanese problems with this, because as it so happens, most of the Palestinians, and here the demographics are not clear, even for the numbers of Palestinian refugees in Lebanon are a matter of some debate. 15 years ago, I remember I did a study on it, and the UNRWA figures were somewhere, unofficially were about 190. Officially was, of course, much higher. What are the exact figures? It's not clear. But those who refuse or who reject the idea of a settlement will say there are 300,000. Some will go up to 500,000, which is, I think, completely absurd. Maybe we can ask my friend Nadim Shhadi later to go into this, because he's dealt more with these issues than I have. But the point I'm making is that the Palestinian refugee issue has really entered into the Lebanese political context and divided the Lebanese between themselves. The Christians in particular are very much afraid of this idea of resettlement, because it would shift the demographic balance in Lebanon to the Muslim communities. So this is often an issue that is raised by the Christians, that we reject the idea of permanent settlement of the Palestinians. That said, in August of last year, there was, I think, a significant measure taken by the Lebanese parliament to approve the idea of allowing the Palestinians to work in a number of jobs from which they had been banned for a long time, which I personally think is actually a good thing, not because it will resettle them, but because in a way it may improve the social and economic condition of the camps, which is essential to helping gradually stabilize them. This leads me to the second issue that is really at the heart of the Palestinian issue in Lebanon. It's the camps themselves. The camps in Lebanon are, of course, a playing field for many of the different regional forces in affecting Lebanese affairs. You can find all kinds of rivalries within the camps. You can find it between Ramallah and, of course, Syria and Hezbollah versus Syria and Hezbollah. You can find it between Fatah and the Salafi jihadists, for example, in the Ain al-Halwi camp in Sidon. You can even find rivalries between the mainstream Fatah movement. I remember there was quite a rivalry when my friend Kamal Naji was named as the sort of the assistant to the Palestinian ambassador in Beirut. His big problem was with the official PLO representative Sultan Abu al-Ainain, and then Kamal was assassinated. I don't know if that had anything to do with it. And even, of course, as some of you know, there was in 2007 in Nahr al-Bard in the north, there was, of course, between the Lebanese army and Fatah al-Islam, which was a Salafi jihadist group. So in a way, the camps themselves, control of the camps, is something that is elusive in Lebanon. And I don't believe that we will have any kind of a settlement today. It's not in the interests of many of the parties to settle the issue of the camps. Above all, I believe Syria, as well as Hezbollah, is happy to break the camps away from the rule of Fatah, which has been, to a certain extent, losing ground in Lebanon over the years. And there is money. Hezbollah, I believe, is putting money in the camps, as well as others, the Iranians. It's interesting to note that the Iranians had begun their influence in the Lebanese camps, especially Ain al-Halwi, as far back as the early 1980s. So the question of control of the camps is essential. And the third issue, and I'll just conclude here, that is again problematic, is that there is no official Lebanese position in support of Palestinian-Israeli negotiations. Rather, it's the contrary. Through the years of Syrian control, of course, Lebanon very much followed the Syrian line on regional peace negotiations. And as you probably know, the Syrians and at the time, the Palestinian Authority were engaged in a long-running rivalry over the issue of the peace negotiations. And so the Lebanese never really prepared themselves in any way for the future of the Palestinian refugee community. What do you do with them? There was no real domestic consensus on this either. And even since the Syrian departure or withdrawal in 2005, which I think is soon about to be reversed in one way or the other, but even since then, Hezbollah has maintained, I think, quite a tight control on the official Lebanese government position when it comes to the peace talks.